Welcome to Celebration Conversations. I'm your host, Sarah Taylor Young. Join me each week as I share inspirational conversations with fellow co-writers, artists, and friends. Here at Celebration Conversations, it is my hope that you will find motivation and celebration in your own story. Let's get to it. This week, I am with Lucky Sky Music flagship country recording artist Tori Martin. Not only was Tori a contestant on season 14 of American Idol, she was nominated for New Female Vocalist of the Year at the Texas Regional Radio Music Awards. Visit her website at www.thetorimartin.com to learn more and listen to her music. Stay tuned after the show for a special sneak peek of her newest release, What Would Dolly Do?, available on all streaming platforms today. I'm here today with Miss Tori Martin. How are you doing today, Tori?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me as a guest.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about you and how you got started performing and songwriting, all that jazz, where you're from.
Yeah. So my name's Tori Martin. I'm a country artist from a small town in Texas. It's called Azle. Most people from Texas don't even know where it's at. So very small town, but I grew up a military brat and moved all around. But by the time I was 7, I moved to Texas. So I really for me, that's home. It's about the only place that I knew for the longest part of my life. So I grew up in a small town, and that's heavily influenced my music, obviously, country music, Texan. My pawpaw raised me on the classics of country music, Tammy Wynette, Johnny Cash, Loretta Lynn. He loved all of them, and so that influenced me too. So yeah, I started in the music industry at 16, and I mean, obviously, I'm kind of like giving you bullet points, but when I was 14 years old, I know it's cliche, but it's the truth. I was singing in church, and
right.
I was in the church choir, and it just so happened to be that the sound engineer at the church was a Grammy Award-winning producer.
Wow.
Yeah. And he heard me and was like, wow, kid, you got some raw talent. So you should do something with that. And I always loved singing. It's always been my passion. And I knew that's what I was going to do with my life. I remember when I was in 2nd grade, they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I'm going to be a famous singer.
Right.
Yeah. Are you sure? You don't want to be a teacher or something, a doctor? I'm like, no, I'm going to be a famous singer.
Yes. So tell me about songwriting. When did that start kind of budding for you?
Yeah. So that kind of budded for me a little bit later than at the beginning of my career. When I first was introduced and into the scene, the music scene has changed so much even since then. It's been 10 years now. And so really I only thought, well, I can just sing. I'm just going to be a singer. I didn't even think I could be a songwriter. Like, no way. But I ended up meeting another cool person on my journey. His name's Billy Herzig, and he's a hit songwriter from Nashville, now living in Texas. And it was then when I met Billy that I was like, oh, so you write songs? And he's like, yeah, you should come over to my studio and we'll try and co-write. And I just thought, like, what the heck do I even do? I don't know how to write a song. I just know how to sing them.
Right.
He taught me, I consider him a mentor, and he taught me, the basics of songwriting and just how you even write a song, what makes a song good, what really pulls you in. And so around that time, around 16 and 17 is when I started writing.
What would you say were some of your first things that you wrote about as a young teenager?
Oh, teenage girl things. So, I mean, that was the era of Taylor Swift at the very beginning. So I was like, ooh, okay, I can write like that, So I think one of my very first songs I wrote was called Whatever. Like, whatever till you're talking, like, boy, you better get walking, just stuff like that.
I love it. That's funny. So I got to tell you, I love your new single, What Would Dolly Do? I'm a diehard Dolly Parton fan as well. So tell me a little bit about how that came about. What was the inspiration? We obviously know Dolly, but what kind of ignited that fire to do that song?
Oh yeah. Well, first off, thank you so much. I love this song and diehard Dolly fan as well. I've always loved Dolly and have sang her, her country standards like Jolene and I Will Always Love You. And, perform them in my show. So my fans would always be like, Tori, you got to write a song about Dolly or for Dolly. And I'm like, that's too much pressure. I cannot. She's the queen. No.
Right.
So I just kind of let it go. But of course, it's in the back of your mind. Well, I had the opportunity to go to Dollywood for the very first time. Have you ever been?
I went last year. This time last year, it was amazing. Yes, we went for my birthday at Christmas time. So it was like a romantic getaway for me and my husband. So that was really nice, and we went for 2 days. Yeah.
Love it. I went for my birthday too, but it was in the summertime. So probably not in the same year. So like you, fell in love. I had the best time. And I'm like, you got to go on your birthday. That's when it's magic,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know if you went in it, but there's that free museum with all of her memorabilia that you can go. Doesn't cost anything. I was like, well, I'm going in there for sure. And so I went in there, and obviously, you see like her first mic stand, and it's like a can on a stick, and you're like, oh my gosh. And her coat of many colors is in there. And something in particular that I saw that really struck a chord with me were these handwritten letters that Dolly wrote to her parents. And it was kind of like in the progression of her career. So starting out when she was like 17, maybe 18, moving to Nashville and saying like, I'm kind of nervous. Maybe I made the wrong decision. I'm really homesick. I miss y'all. It's a big town. And then the next letter you see like, hey, I'm doing a lot better. Don't worry about me. So people want to cut my songs. And so that really struck a chord with me. I was like, oh my gosh, like we forget when people reach like a pinnacle or superstardom that they have humble beginnings just like you. You can't snap your fingers and make it happen. They've been in your shoes. And I was like, uh-oh, I have got a song.
Yes. So who did you write it with, and who was it produced by?
I co-wrote it with John Cirillo and Sarah Spencer, two really talented songwriters budding in town. And it was produced by Bill Warner, who's a very talented and well-respected producer here in Nashville.
Okay, very cool. And I saw the music video on there too. That was so cute with you in the wig, Dolly wig and everything. That was too cute.
Definitely. It should be coming out very, very soon, so I'm super excited to be sharing.
Awesome. Yes. So were you inspired mostly by Dolly, or were there other female artists that you were inspired by?
Dolly definitely is a huge inspiration to me in so many different ways, but I also love big singers like Whitney Houston and Etta James, Aretha Franklin, kind of soul sisters.
Yes.
Diehard Stevie Nicks fan. Oh, gosh,
yes.
I love Stevie, Dolly, Whitney,
Yeah. So what is it about those that you just kind of gravitate towards? I don't know. There's just something about Dolly. You can't put your finger on it for me, but I don't know. What is it for you, do you think?
I think what I love about Dolly is just how genuine and authentic she is and how humble she is. Even with all of her, I mean, goodness, she's critically acclaimed. Hello, woman has won everything. The earth, and I love that about her. Even in the museum, if you do get the opportunity to visit, and I know you've been, it was amazing to see that she still paid like homage and cared about the people that brought her up. So like there was, I think, somebody who inspired her in church, and she did a whole like booth about her. And I just love that about her. And with the things she does with the books for kids. And she's like, I don't care how many amazing songs I write. I want to be known as the book lady. And I just love that about her. So that inspires me. I'm like, I just love her. Like she feels like my best friend and I haven't even met her.
Right. Have you seen that movie, Dumplin'?
Yes. I love that.
I read the sequel, the book to it. It's called Puddin'. And yeah, I haven't read the first one yet because, I
seen the movie, but I absolutely loved the book. Too cute. Too cute.
Those.
Yes, yes. So you have a new Christmas single out now. Tell me the name of it again. Santa wrote me a letter.
Santa wrote me a letter.
Yes, killer song. It's got kind of some bluesy vibes in there. And tell me about the inspiration and who was on your team for that.
Yeah, that song's actually really funny how it came to be. I had a writing session set up with Kirsty Manna and Bill DeLuigi, both incredible songwriters in town. And our eyes were set on writing a good old country song, and we wrote one. But then towards the end, Kirsty was on my keyboard and playing kind of like this 50s vibe, Grease-esque style music, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then Bill was like, I kind of have this like Christmas idea. What do you guys think of it? And we just were rolling off of it, and we wrote it so quickly in like 30 minutes. And it was probably just because we were having so much fun with it and just talking about, when you're single and alone at Christmas or Thanksgiving, and you're like, oh, come on, Santa, where's my man, or where's my girl, where's the man? And then one of my favorite lines in the song, it says, my family says, I don't see no ring. And then the background girls go, no ring. Like, I just love that. It's like, how many times have you heard that when you were single? You're like, oh, great. I don't need to put a cork in it.
Yeah, right. So yeah, a lot of people are going to be in that kind of situation this year. What are you doing this Christmas time with family and, just to get through the holidays with COVID and everything?
It's definitely different. Traditions are kind of going to be broken for some things. Like my dad throws a traditional, amazing Christmas Eve party. We're not going to do that this year because obviously it's not safe. But I'm like, I'm going to miss it. But hopefully I do get to see some of my family members. And my dad makes some amazing Cajun turkey. So maybe he'll make it. Fingers crossed. But I'm planning to go down to Texas. So I'm not really sure. I'm like, I don't really know how this Christmas is going to turn out. But all that matters is if I do get to see some loved ones, that's really all that matters. And if not, then we can hop on Skype or Zoom.
Yes. We just got to do what we got to do in this time of uncertainty, make the best of what we have. Tell me a little bit about your first release, Day by Day, and where the inspiration from that came from.
I love that. So I recorded that self-titled EP before I moved to Nashville in 2017. And I actually wrote that with Billy Herzig. I talked about him a little bit earlier and did that whole project with him. And for me, it was kind of like a coming of age record, really spreading my wings, moving out, being on my own. And that's what Day by Day is about. It's like adulting, growing up. It's not always fun. There's great, believe me, there's perks, but it's like, oh, I'm such an adult, So that's what Day by Day, I'm taking it day by day. That's really all you can do.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are doing, in this COVID time. That's what a lot of people do, when they're going through a time of uncertainty. I just loved the message behind that one. Just, one day at a time, one step at a time, that's all we can do. So, was there a story behind that particular song?
Well, in one of the verses, I talk about a car like backing into me. It actually happened. So yeah, I was just driving, doing my business, and then this car just hit me, and I'm like, oh, great. And it's funny because one of my friends laughs. They were like, I remember you telling me that like somebody hit your car, Tori, and then the next day you wrote a song about it. I'm like, hey, it's real life, man. I got to put it in there somewhere.
It's a country song then. Yeah. So I saw that you were on American Idol. What was that like, being on as a contestant?
Yeah, I was on season 14 a few years back, and that was craziness. It was wild. I wasn't planning to go on American Idol. I was doing pretty well in the Texas scene and really working that. I was only 19 years old, so I was like, I'm doing this, and had my eyes kind of set on Nashville. But the opportunity presented itself, and I was just kind of like, well, what the heck? Why not? I mean, if they say no, then I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. If they say yes, we'll see. So I kind of just had that mentality going into it. And I ended up getting a golden ticket, going to Hollywood and all that fun stuff. So it's wild. That's all I could say. I'm like, it's so surreal, and it's nothing like what it looks like on TV, especially like I was watching it when Kelly Clarkson was doing it, and like, I'm going to be an American Idol. You can see just how low budget it all was. I feel like it was more raw, and there really was a chance, like if you were standing in line, you could totally be the American Idol. Just because they didn't even know if the show was going to work, and it was a massive hit. So then you see like the next season, you're like, oh, a lot more money is poured in there, and then by the time it got to Carrie, it was just, I feel like at its peak, it really was amazing when it was Simon and Paula and Randy, like those were the days. And my season, by the end, that was almost the end of American Idol. Now it is rebooted, so it's with a different network. So I was the second to last season, and so I could say I could just tell there are things a little different on set. I'm like, okay, they might be, kind of going towards the end. And now I couldn't even tell you because it's rebooted. It's completely new judges, new network. It's probably totally different.
So did you get to meet Keith Urban? Was that your season?
Yes, I did.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. I love Keith Urban too. About as much as I love Dolly. I don't know. They're a toss up. So what was it like meeting him?
I mean, I was definitely starstruck. You try not to be. You're like, I'm not going to be. I know who it is. I've looked them up. I can do this. And then you walk in and you're like, hi, they're just like beautiful Barbie angels. I mean, they look fake. Like, there's no other way to explain it. They got makeup and their hair, and they're just like flawless. And you're just like, you glow a little bit, and I don't. So it was mind blowing. That was definitely who I wanted to impress, and so I was like, uh-oh. He said that he loved my voice. So I was like, okay, that's it. I can leave. Everybody, we're good.
You don't have to win or anything. I'm good. Veteran said he liked my voice. That's awesome. Cool. Just listening to him talk and everything.
Oh yeah, I love when he says artist. He's like artist, like he says it's so cool.
All right. So tell me about a time. We talk a lot about how music kind of helps us overcome things in life with this show. Tell me about a time when music really helped you get through something hard.
Man, there's so many times. I mean, I could sit here for hours. Music has always kind of been like the way for me, and has helped me navigate this crazy thing we call life. For me, it sounds kind of funny, but when I was coming off the show, I went through a really hard time, like a hard patch, because there are some things like legally, like you have to kind of press pause for a little bit when you come off the show. And so I wasn't able to perform, and there was just some things going on in my life, a huge change and a shift. And it left me, pretty depressed, and I kind of had writer's block. And I was like, man, I can't write anything. I just felt like in a funk, in a fog. And that's a tough place to be in, especially when music is like what you love. And
right.
You're like, that's all I want to do. I just want to make music. I just want to sing. And there was one time in particular, I was living in these cool apartments in downtown Fort Worth, and there was a outdoor stage in the area, and there was a girl out there singing. And at the time, I couldn't perform. I had to wait. And so I was up there listening to her sing, and the music just filled everything. And I was like, man, I so wish I could be her right now. Like, I want to do that. And I got this idea for a song. And I mean, this had been 6-8 months. I hadn't written anything. And it was called Caged Bird. And so that's what inspired me to write that song. It's on my self-titled EP I released before moving. And I was up there in my room writing a song, wishing I could be out there, and I felt like a caged bird. So that's where that song stems from. And music got me through it.
Yeah, something about vibrations and just being able to express yourself with writing and through and vocalizing all that stuff. There's just something about it. I'm not a music therapist or anything, but there's just something really cool that God gives us through music, I feel.
Definitely.
Yes. So tell me about what happened kind of after that. Did you start writing more? Did you get a little bit more inspired?
Yeah. After I wrote that one, I mean, it like totally broke through, and I wrote the entire EP. So I went ahead and I got in the studio and I recorded it, and then I was able to get back out there and start playing shows. And then it wasn't long after that I decided, okay, it's time for a shift. I'm moving to Nashville.
Yeah. So what was that like from going from Texas to Nashville?
Huge culture shock, totally different. I mean, I came from a super small town. And so when I first got here, I was like, oh gosh, like Dolly, what did I do? I don't know. It felt like, oh man, I'm like, I don't know anybody here. I didn't. I knew like no one. I had, I think maybe one friend, and we were just kind of friends, like we wrote together from afar. We hadn't even met. So I'm like, I have no one. My family ain't out here, nothing. And so it was really scary at first. But the longer I've stayed in town, the longer I've kept at it, the more that I've realized this really is a small town in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big town. It's kind of like everybody knows everybody still. So
A big small town.
A big small town. Yes. So tell me about what your life is like now, post American Idol and everything. Are you performing? Where can we view your website? What about your socials?
Definitely. So this year has been a little funky, to say the least.
Yeah.
Currently not performing out,
Right.
but I have a lot of cool virtual events that I have done and that I'm planning to do in the new year. So I'm really excited to be launching something with that I'll be telling you guys about soon. But I did sign a record deal this year, so that was very monumental, a huge.
Congrats.
Thank you. So I'm really excited to have a team working with me now and helping me, guiding me. And
awesome. Kudos to you. I've heard so many people, I'm an artist as well. I've heard so many people say, it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. What would you say to, somebody who's trying to pursue songwriting or trying to pursue being an artist, a singer?
I would say just be who you are unapologetically, and don't let anybody steer you away from that. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to come into your life, and some good, some bad, and they're going to want to steer you this way or steer you that way. And you just need to, somebody told me this too. They're like, put the blinders on, remember who you are. And that's why I was talking about Dolly. She's so authentic. Don't lose sight of that. And when you do, that's when you need to put yourself back in the right lane. And yeah, I mean, there's only one you in the world. So don't copy, try to make yourself sound like. Of course, you can be influenced by people, but don't try to be a carbon copy. Just be you and never give up.
Yeah. Yes. Don't give up. I think that's the biggest thing. We can let that inner negative voice get a hold of us so much. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a daily thing. And I feel like with social media and just seeing like the highlight reels, it's really hard. You can't compare yourself to other people. And that is like the hardest thing to do in our climate of the world today. That is what we're told to do. I mean, it's constantly shoved at you. So don't compare where she's at, where you're at, or where he's at. You just need to focus on you. Just do you.
Yeah. It's really hard too when you're a mom. I have a 3-year-old daughter, almost 4. And I just had to take myself off of Facebook of seeing other moms. I was going through a time this year where we found out my daughter had a speech delay. And every time I would get on Facebook, I would see, all these other kids talk. They were, further along in their speech development. And it's just like, social media, it's kind of like a necessary evil. You want to get your name out there, and especially if you're being an artist and all that. But you have to be careful not to let it suck you in, because you can, doesn't matter how successful you are, doesn't matter how successful you are. If you're looking at somebody else is always going to be better, so you just have to be careful of your mental health and not get sucked in. It's a challenge. It is a challenge.
There's days where I'm like, if I'm feeling in a funk, or I'm feeling like, okay, I don't need to be doing this, I don't need to be looking at that, I'll just put my phone down, do something that makes me feel good, that makes me happy. If that's going for a walk, clear my mind, like, I don't have to be on social media right now, And another thing to remember too, and I have to remind myself of this, when you're comparing yourself to somebody else, you have to remember too that there's somebody else looking at you saying, I wish I was where she's at. And you forget that. You forget how far you've come. And there are people wishing that they were in your shoes. And when you think about it like that, you're like, man, okay, yeah, I'm taking things for granted. And that totally changes my mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I teach kids at a private Christian school. I teach music classes there, and I'm constantly telling them in my music class, sometimes one student will get something super fast, and then another one, he's a little slower at it, and they get frustrated. And I'm like, isn't this life? Isn't this, so I'm constantly teaching them, you have to be patient, or God gave you this gift, maybe not that other gift. So, but to live that out, it's a lot harder said than done.
1000%.
Say that again, sorry.
I said 1000%.
Yes. We just have to do that in our daily walk. What would you say would be in the near future for you, like in the next 5 years? What would you like to see yourself doing?
Oh, there's so many things. And obviously, with where our world is at, I'm like, what is it going to be like in 5 years?
Are we going to have another 5 years?
Seriously, I'm like, what does the 5 years look like? But in all seriousness, what I'd love to see is, I mean, I've already done so many cool things, and I'm like, there's so much more I want to do, but I would love to see one of my songs go on mainstream country radio. I'd love to do a tour, a worldwide tour. That would be amazing. There's so many things. I'd love to play the Grand Ole Opry. I'd love to play the Ryman Auditorium and go back to Texas and play the Texas State Fair, which is one of the biggest stages out there. And there's so many things that are on my list, and I'm grateful for everything that I've already been able to do and the cool things I've already scratched off my list, but definitely I'm still a dreamer.
Yeah. I think the question more so, what wouldn't Dolly do at this point? Like, what wouldn't you do?
That's so funny. Hey, that leads to things.
I mean, yeah, I mean, she's been I was just mesmerized when I was in that museum that you were talking about, just by her clothes.
I know. Like shoes, I could never fit in them if I dreamed of it. They're like this big.
Yeah, they're super tiny, and she's just got nobody can forget Dolly. Like nobody can forget her voice. I remember when I was like a teenager, I saw her on, I think it was at ACM Awards, and she did this big number, and I was starting to come into my faith then, starting to really learn about God and have a relationship with Jesus. And she did this song, and I still have this album. She did this song, Hello God. Do you know that song?
I don't know that one.
Oh gosh, it was a Dolly anthem. She had the white dress on, and she had the choir behind her and everything. It was just, I just kept thinking, that's what I want to do someday. She's just awesome.
Yes,
awesome.
I agree.
I call it the Dolly Parton moment. We all need our Dolly Parton moment. Well, where can we find you on socials? And remind me of your website name.
Yeah, you everything at torimartin.com. And on my socials, follow me at Tori Martin Official on Instagram. That's kind of where I like to hang out the most. But on Facebook, I'm just Tori Martin. And every Friday, I do Fun Time Friday at 5 p.m. Central. Literally, if I'm in Nashville or Taiwan, you name it, I'm there. We hang out, and it's just a fun thing that I've been doing since COVID started, just to kind of have a little bit of fun, no matter what you're doing. Just take a few minutes. So make sure you tune in.
Okay, so what time does that happen? Would you say
5 p.m. Central every Friday?
Okay, Central. Okay, all right. Awesome. Well, it was so nice meeting you, and I'm glad we got to do this, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me on, Sarah.
Hey there, don't go just yet. Be sure to hit subscribe to be notified of new episodes every week of Celebration Conversations. Show us some support by liking and sharing this episode to inspire followers and friends alike. Follow me at syoungmusic on Instagram. I would love if you left a comment or a review about the episode. Without further ado, here's a special preview of Tori's newest release, What Would Dolly Do?, available on all streaming platforms.
Called me crazy when I changed my zip code, and there's always somebody judging my wardrobe. And